going to switch to an update from the COMESA team. And as they come up, we will show a video, I believe, of the progress that they've been making. This session will be led by Jadida Debele and Jonathan Pinifolo, if you guys can come up as we play the video.
Every day, across COMESA's bustling markets, we see the same story. A mother carefully counts her savings before crossing the border. A young trader nervously carries cash in his backpack. A small business owner waits days for payments to clear. These are our people, 681 million strong, held back by the barriers of moving money across borders. We've journeyed far in our mission towards a more integrated COMESA. Through reps, we created secure channels for our banks, but more can still be done. Walk through any market, talk to any trader, and you'll hear the same thing. The everyday person still struggles to send and receive money across borders. When banks and formal channels are used, transactions must pass through multiple intermediaries, each with different rules, systems, and approvals. The process is slow, expensive, and unpredictable. Many therefore turn to what they can afford: cash physically carried across borders by couriers or informal agents. Options that are risky, unregulated, and unreliable. That changes with DRPP. Picture this. A shopkeeper in Zambia instantly pays her supplier in Malawi using just her phone and in her local currency. A student in Zambia sends money home to Malawi without hefty fees. This is the digital retail payment platform created by COMESA for COMESA. Simple, affordable, and secure payments in our own currencies that will connect all 21 COMESA member states. Meet Sarah, who grew her crafts business from a local market stall to serving customers across 3 countries. Or James, whose farming cooperative now receives payments instantly from regional buyers. These aren't just transactions, they're dreams becoming reality. When our small businesses thrive, our communities prosper. This is more than technology. It's about writing our own story. Every payment kept within our borders strengthens our economies. Together, we are creating a COMESA where trade connects like a well-woven tapestry, where borders become bridges, not barriers, and where our shared prosperity is in our own hands.
Thank you for your time. And Olu, I don't know where he has gone to sit. Okay. I want to thank Olu, who came just before me, because he tackled the aspects that we decided to leave out this time. We've been given 30 minutes, and we thought, instead of going into technical details that we've done in the past, let's take a step back and actually just tell you more about what the DRPP is. So for COMESA, the DRPP is what we are banking on to transform our lives, to transform the lives of our population. It's a landmark initiative that we've come up with, and it's something that has been running for a while now. We're just at the cusp of announcing major things, so we will not do it today. We do not want to spoil the surprise. But what is the DRPP? It's something major for COMESA. 600 million people, 280 million wallets. This is what we are looking at transforming the lives of people to grow our prosperity. One of the objectives of COMESA is to ensure that we lift our populations out of poverty, and hence the DRPP. The DRPP is meant to ensure that the marginalized, the underbanked, the women, the youth who've been left out previously are now included in the conversation. Now, it seeks to address several challenges. Yesterday, we got a presentation from Central Bank of Kenya. For me, that was a very eye-opening presentation because of the statistics. And statistics are what drives our decisions. And what Michael said yesterday was that there are so many initiatives coming up, but what problem are they solving? Are we all trying to solve the same problem with the same solutions? And for the DRPP, the problem that we are trying to solve is exclusion. We currently run, as COMESA, a regional payment system, which we call the Regional Payment and Settlement System, something we are very proud of because it allows importers and exporters to transact in a currency that stores value and a currency that is, how can you say it, a currency that gives you a guarantee that when you receive your payment, it's the same amount as when you made the trade. But we then sat back to say, hang on, not everybody has access to the US dollar, not everybody has access to the euro, so they are not able to transact. So they have been excluded in that conversation. So we are trying to address that issue. Transaction costs. You can come up with the best payment system, best infrastructure, but if it does not address the problem of costs, you will have no one to use it. And that is what we have seen even in other regional payment systems that are currently existing. So hence the DRPP. Limited interoperability is another issue that we are trying to resolve with the DRPP because you then go to your bank, you can only make transactions to so many other players. So you need an app for this bank, you need an app for another, and at the end of the day, your costs are increasing because you cannot use the one platform to pay the various service providers or goods providers who are banking with different institutions. So we are also leveraging the modular loop solution, open source. Open source is the buzzword at the moment. And we all know the benefits of it. We have spoken about it many times because it gives you flexibility. It allows you to speak the same language with other players. It gives you room to scale while managing your costs, room to scale while coming up with what it is that you need for your particular institution and requirements. So the standards of the DRPP are based on this foundation. And if you imagine, COMESA has 21 member states. Each of these member states and their central banks have got different platforms at different maturity levels. Now, what better way to connect them than through an open source platform, which gives each institution the flexibility it needs to address its own jurisdictional requirements in terms of the rules, in terms of what it needs to meet the regulatory needs of that particular jurisdiction. And then the system enables real-time, transparent, efficient transactions among the various categories of digital payment system providers. So each jurisdiction will have various DFSPs, digital financial service providers, non-banks, and others. How do they then speak in one language? How do they then come together to make sure that we are addressing the very problem we are speaking about, and that problem is interoperability. And that is what the DRPP is doing. And as I listened to Olu's presentation, I was saying, I wish I had listened to that presentation before we started our own project. There are so many lessons to be learned. And so today, our vision is what we'd like to share with you, is to enable instant, secure, and affordable cross-border payments with settlement in local currency. And this is our biggest selling point for the DRPP. We need cross-border payments to flow as easily as domestic payments. If I could challenge any one of you to pick up your phone now, we are in Nairobi, open your mobile banking app, or go to your internet banking platform and try make a transaction to a friend or a colleague or a relative in another country, but in your local currency, and see how much success you will have with that. If we had time, if we had more than the 30 minutes, I would actually have said, who has succeeded? Can we see your transaction? So that is a kind of challenge that we have. Now, it's not just about the local currency. We want it to be seamless. We want it to flow as if you're actually doing a payment within your own jurisdiction. That is what we are trying to achieve. Now, what's our update? 2 weeks ago, COMESA had its annual Heads of State and Government Summit. And our theme this year was leveraging digital upgrades or digital progress to ensure that we achieve economic growth. And we got a huge announcement here. And it was for the DRPP as an initiative that we announced here. Now, why are we so happy about this? It's because the conversation has shifted to a leadership role. It's no longer about us as the players. Even the leaders in the region recognize the need for us to move from conversation to action. And when we move from conversation to action, and we've got buy-in at that level, it means that we are all trying to solve a problem that even the leaders appreciate is actually hampering growth, is hampering financial inclusion, and leaving some people behind. So this has been great for us. It has created a lot of interest amongst the DFSPs and the various jurisdictions. So that was a big announcement for us. Now, we have been optimizing Moduloop. Optimizing means we are refining what we got. And we all know, for the technical people, I'm not one of them, but we know you get the platform and it's your oyster. You can do so much with it. And that is what the DRPP is doing. It's part of our way to give back. So we have this platform. This is what we've built out of it, and it's something we would like others to read from and to continue benefiting from. So that is what we are giving back. We are hardening what we have worked on so that others can benefit. We also got to benefit from others' contributions. Now, we are using our experience to prepare to roll out to other jurisdictions. It's not been an easy journey. We are currently working on the pilot Malawi, Zambia, and you can imagine by the time we get to jurisdiction number 8 or number 9 or number 10, there is so much we would have learned because each jurisdiction comes with its own challenges, it comes with its own advantages. All of them are at different levels of readiness, and each time you go into a jurisdiction, you will then experience various challenges. You will learn lessons that will take you forward quicker in another jurisdiction. So that is the future that we are working with. We are saying Zambia, Malawi has been our canvas. And what we learn from here, we can take to the others. Imagine if we had started with all 21. It would mean we are transporting the problems from one to the other because we have not learned a lesson. So we started with Zambia, Malawi, and our success there is what will be able to then prepare us for the other jurisdictions. Now, we are entering real money friendly user trials. And this is huge for us as well. We have been testing, so we have successfully demonstrated that the system does work between Zambia and Malawi, and we are now actually going to use real money on the real rails. And my colleague Jonathan, did I introduce myself? I didn't. I think I was introduced. I just remembered when I said my colleague Jonathan. Apologies, I'm Jedida. I lead the COMESA Clearing House. I'm glad I got your attention. So, COMESA Clearing House is an institution of COMESA, and we facilitate the efficient transfer of payments and settlements between member states, which means cross-border. So that's what we're at. We're just so passionate about talking about this, we forget who we are. Anyway, we are entering real money, real rails, which is big for us. And we've had a lot of support, and my colleague Jonathan will talk about it in a bit, from our central banks. Olu said it, without you following those steps where you have regulatory approval, then you're bound to either run a very long project, or you could have all the systems in place, but you will not launch. So that's where we are now. It hasn't been an easy journey to get here. And that's why we thought to share with you some of the successes we have come across, some of the lessons that we could learn from, and I will now hand over to Jonathan, and he will take us through the lessons that we have learned along the way, and any other exciting news, Jonathan, that you'd like to speak about. And please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. And my name is Jonathan. I work as the Chief Operating Officer for the program, so I'm the program lead, of course, reporting to JDIDA. So apparently, going through the lessons learned, I would say that we are doing what we are doing now because we made challenges, several challenges. And that's what has led us to see what sort of lessons do we need to learn. Before I start my presentation, I want first and foremost to say that, as JDIDA pointed out, that the past few weeks we were announcing the initiative. So I would say that we have reached this far because we stood on the shoulders of the giants. So maybe before I go to the presentation, maybe first and foremost, let me maybe just ask maybe the COMESA central banks in the room to stand up, and as well as probably FDH, our FX provider, but also IFTIX, who are in the room, and also our local system integrators. If they're in the room, please may you stand up. And the national switch, Malawi, please stand up. So can we give them a big round of applause, please? You may sit down. So I would say it wasn't only about JDIDA, myself, but these are the team behind the scenes. So one of the key aspects that we have learned over time is to do with collaboration. So through the collaborations, we have been able to reach where we are. We are different stakeholders, implementers, the central banks, and I must also say that apart from the Central Bank of Malawi and Zambia being the initiating banks, also all the central banks within the COMESA region through the reps have been there for us to support the initiative. The second learning that we have learned is on to do with tailoring approaches to jurisdiction contents. It's very critical. This is the context whereby we are saying that it's not a question of one size fits all. We have learned that we have to treat different regulators, but also even different stakeholders differently. You might find that probably what is happening in North Africa, maybe Egypt, Tunisia, is not the same thing you might expect is happening in maybe Malawi or Zambia. Again, even dealing with our stakeholders, various stakeholders, we had to even sort of like customize our presentations to meet different needs, to meet different DFSPs. So that's one of the things that we also learned over time. The third learning is about how do we handle the jurisdictions. So initially, I think for those of you who have been following the program, we had planned to do 8 countries. We wanted the regional COMESA hub to connect to 8 national financial switches, all of them at once. But what we noted was to say that this was a difficult aspect to tackle with, so we had to narrow down to start with 2 countries. And the whole essence of starting with 2 countries was for us to be able to know how much resources do we need. And this was like sort of like a learning ground. That's why we started with Malawi and Zambia. But as you noted to say, the initial assumption was wrong. We thought probably maybe, like initially we were thinking of having Bank of Mauritius as a settlement bank, but over time, the model changed. We had to think about the INIPSs for both Malawi and Zambia and the like. So that's also one of the lessons that we learned, to narrow down our work from 8 countries to 2 countries. The other issue was to do with the participating financial institutions. The question here was to say, how do we have a value proposition? How do they know how important the system is to us? So it was also a question of how best did we pass on the message to the different participating institutions? How do we tell them that this is something of value? So issues like, for instance, we are talking about the cost of transactions. Our target is the World Bank target, which we are saying it has to be less than 3%. Issues to do with local currencies. Again, for some other maybe countries within the region, they have challenges to do with local currencies. So that was also one of the most important aspects in as far as this program is concerned. The other issue was also to do with continued engagement model to build confidence and trust. So over and above the time we have been having different participant work streams. Along the program, we came up with 3 working groups. We had the legal and regulatory, which is also already there, the commercial working group, as well as the technical and standards. The whole aim of having these working groups was just to ensure that probably we align with what is required according to international standards. We got input in various areas. I've just talked about the pricing, but also even issues like, for instance, the scheme rule book from these different participants. The other aspect, we have also been having public-private dialogues, whereby we have been inviting stakeholders from the public as well as from the private sector, also just to see how we shape this program. I must also say that it is through such public-private dialogues whereby we are able to, it enabled to have like a strong interest from the participants on the platform based on the value proposition it was offering. Like, for instance, I will give an example, the FX, the Forex provider solution, or how cheap, affordable the platform is. Over and above that, we also had the other forums, like, for instance, the bootcamp. With the bootcamp, they were there to help us to see, so that people should understand the framework, the operational framework of how the DRPP work, all the technical aspects, the governance structure, and other issues as well. It was also noted that team engagement is very important. So again, team members transitioning, probably people might lose interest, but we had to ensure that there's constant team engagement. We are meeting with the same stakeholders in terms of probably the institutions. We have focal points. We have liaison officers. So maybe just to give an example, maybe if I am to deal with our FX provider, I will know I have to talk to maybe FEF in FDH as an FX provider, or I have to talk with this particular person. So such thing also help us to keep momentum. The other aspect that we learned was about the communication plan. So in any organization, as you might know, there are different levels. You could have the executives, the C-level, you could have the operational guys, the commercial guys. So what we did was to say, how best also do we pass relevant information to different stakeholders? If the people in the operation, obviously, it has to be technical operational matters. If there are those in the executive, there have to be strategic decisions. But also, over and above that, it is about the mandate for stakeholder engagement. I, for one, also may be having a privilege to wear 2 hats within the COMESA institution. We noted that it's very important for the right people to talk to so that there is a right conversation to talk to the right people. Like, for instance, I'll give an example, maybe the extent whereby COMESA Clearinghouse has to talk to the central banks. So that's also very important to have like the right people talking to the right institutions, and this also helps to achieve the results very fast. So basically, those are some of the key 8 learning points that we noted. Of course, there are quite a lot of them, and also this has helped us to see how best do we move forward. And let me also hand back to Jedida to take us on the next steps on this initiative. Thank you.
Before I speak about the next steps, as Jonathan was speaking, I thought to just put emphasis on our central banks, because we have seen, and I think that's another lesson learned, how the role of the central bank is changing from just being a regulator to actually being a partner. We have worked so well with Bank of Zambia, Reserve Bank of Malawi, and the other central banks of COMESA member states. And this is where we are saying it's more about partnership as opposed to just being a regulator. And Bank of Uganda as well is here. Central Bank of Kenya was here. And we look forward to just pushing those conversations forward. We work in a really difficult community, which is the regional economic community, because of our currencies, we suffer two problems with our currencies: currency convertibility, currency acceptability. These are the two issues we have problems with. So if I go across the border and I go, and I think for the East Africa community is different, but if I go to Zambia with my Kenya shillings, they will not be accepted. They can be converted, but no one will want them because they won't know what to do with them thereafter. So currency convertibility, currency acceptability, those are the two issues. And this is why, again, the DRPP is a solution that we've been pushing, because we want to make sure with your Kenya shillings, you can still transact with a trader in Zambia. With your Malawi kwacha, you can transact with somebody in Uganda. And we take out those barriers. In our video, we did say we are aiming to achieve for borderless payments. A payment should not actually be defined by a border. It should really just go through seamlessly and quickly. So, thank you to our central banks. And we do hope these roles keep evolving to achieve these objectives. Now, our next steps, because it's a conversation and it's not something you get at the click of a button, we are still working for regulatory approval. Regulatory approval, not to say the central banks are not happy, but for them to then say, you have ticked all the boxes of the things that we require you to achieve, so that we can move on to the next stage. And because of the scale of which this thing will evolve, if we get it wrong at the beginning, it means we are creating problems further down the road. So the COMESA Committee of Central Bank Governors will be meeting next month, another monumental event for us, because that's where we get to present our progress and then say what it is that we are doing next. And from that meeting, we do hope to then go to the closed user group after we are done with the friendly user trials, get a bigger sample, and then prepare for the next steps. Now, we are also refining our guidelines. These are evolving. They keep evolving because it's hard enough to deal with one jurisdiction. Now imagine two, Zambia and Malawi. So we are keeping on evolving. The policies, the legal frameworks, the business and the governance models, these are things we are working with. And because we are all governed by the Committee of Governors, it makes it a little bit easier for us in terms of trying to get the results that we want, and hence the advantage of working through the clearinghouse. It just makes it easier because the conversation is at the same table, at the same level. Now, our call to action is we are also still trying to secure funding for the program, because we have to onboard 21 member states, not at once, but in phases. And just to mention, the original model was for 8. So capability has been built for the 8. We do have the capability. But in terms of connecting to live, we are starting with 2. That is to make sure that we get it right from the word go. So we've got, we will prepare for the other jurisdictions. We've got 6 coming up. And then we will get authority to go to commercial availability once we have met all the conditions that our regulators require us to achieve. So with those few words, I thank you for listening. We would like to just give a few minutes for questions, because we believe a conversation is what makes us learn what it is we need to avoid going forward, or what are some of the experiences we've had along the way. We're happy to share this with you. So thank you. We are welcome for questions. Dr. Titi, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Now, my question, at least across Africa, is in the East Africa region we have IPS. For COMESA we have REPS and now DRPP. For cross Africa there is PAPS. The question is, have all these 3 entities sat down to agree amongst themselves how their various systems or platforms or market infrastructure are going to interconnect and work? That's 1. 2, in the COMESA meeting of Central Bank Governors in November last year, there was, and I remember you were there was a whole discussion about member states each of them ensuring that they had a national payment switch, or a national instant payment system. So if each country has a national payment system, each country has an RTGS, some countries are part of IPS, some countries are part of IPS and COMESA, some countries want to be part of IPS, COMESA, and PAPS. How is this whole thing, has there been a conversation between yourselves, IPS, and PAPS to ensure that, one, whatever it is that you're doing, it all works together? That's one. Two, and what it would mean for your existing model today, or the way you are designing the DRPP, if each of the member states chooses to have its own instant payment switch or system, that then they then integrate with neighboring states, say through an API. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Titi, for the questions. So there are several regional economic blocks in Africa, and each is trying to run its own cross-border system. Now, at the moment, we see ourselves as not competitors. We would like to call ourselves collaborators, and each is running with a different model. Now, for the DRPP local currency, that is, and I think that is our biggest selling point, is local currency. It's instant, and then the end user has access to this system. I do not want to compare them at the moment, right now, but I can assure you that the conversations are happening. Within COMESA, there's the tripartite conversation where we have the East Africa Community, SADC, and COMESA. It's not just about having regional economic blocks where member states are paying fees and subscriptions to join, and there's a lot of duplication, but it's about the payment systems, because the payment systems are also having duplications amongst themselves, so that you find, because member states have memberships, some of them, for example, Kenya is a member of EAC, a member of COMESA, Zambia is a member of COMESA, is a member of SADC. The conversation is now shifting to say, how can we leverage the systems that have already been built to make sure that we are deriving the maximum benefit? And the belief for COMESA, at least, is that we cannot have one solution that works at once. We perfect the little blocks we have, so we perfect reps, East Africa Community perfects its system, and then we come together and see how they can interoperate. That's why we call it interoperability, because you may not have one solution that addresses everybody's concerns, but if DRPP will address concerns of many and can interoperate with PAPS, which also has something else to offer, which DRPP may not, then by all means work together and make sure you interoperate. And that's why interoperability is big for us as a DRPP, and local currency is big for us. On the issue of switches, how beautiful it would be if each country had a national switch. Some still don't. And then each switch then connected to the DRPP, for example. And not just for COMESA, it would stretch to West Africa, to North Africa. Everybody connects their switch to the DRPP, and that opens up access to this platform, not just to the COMESA region, but to everybody. And allows us to use local currencies across those jurisdictions. That would be amazing. It's a very big, it's very ambitious, but it can be done. So the conversations are happening. The political will is there. I think so, yes, Dr. Titi. I don't know about Uganda, but I do believe the will is there, but there's a lot of protection of jurisdictional economic benefits. But we have to work through those. Those are the challenges we have to work through. So very supportive feedback received from the switches, from the central banks, but the conversations are happening, and we have to ensure they continue to happen.
Yeah, just to add, I think from the trade perspective, so also when you look at the African Continental Free Trade Area Agenda, it says these regional economic communities, be it COMESA, SADC, or EAC, have to be the building blocks for continental initiatives. So basically what we are saying is a question of a bottom-up approach whereby we have got national initiatives feeding into regional initiatives, and then these also have to feed into the continental agenda. So basically also just to add on like what Jedida had highlighted to say, we are working in a cooperative space, but it has to be a bottom-up approach. Thank you.
I think the boss is here, so we will step down.
Thank you. Yes, a round of applause for them.